Hello and welcome. I'm Leanne Gerrans and you're watching W News Extra, broadcasting live from the Arabiya studios. These are our top stories. The Prince and Princess of Wales break their silence on the latest revelations from the Epstein files. Tech giants attend a landmark social media trial over addiction claims. And the Seattle Seahawks win this year's Super Bowl as Puerto Rican star Bad Bunny performs a historic halftime show entirely in Spanish. The Prince and Princess of Wales have said they are deeply concerned by the continuing revelations regarding Andrew Mountbatten Windsor in the Epstein files, but say their thoughts remain focused on the victims. The update was made by a Kensington Palace spokesman ahead of the Prince of Wales' trip to Saudi Arabia this week. It comes as Ghislaine Maxwell refused to answer questions about Epstein at a hearing at the US Capitol today. Here's some of what the chairman of the House of Representatives Oversight Committee said to reporters following the closed session.
As expected, Ghislaine Maxwell took the fifth and refused to answer any questions. This obviously is very disappointing. We had many questions to ask about the crimes she and Epstein committed, as well as questions about potential co-conspirators. We sincerely want to get to the truth for the American people and justice for the survivors. That's what this investigation is about. What her attorney said, Maxwell didn't say, her attorney said that she would answer questions if she were granted clemency by the president
Trump,
and that she went on to say about Clinton and.
To discuss this and all of today's stories, I'm joined by Rawia Alami, senior presenter at Arabiya, and broadcaster Jono Hayes. Rawia and Jono, great to be back in the studio with both of you.
Great to have you back.
Thank you so much. Let's start there. So we heard from James Comer, the chairman of the House of Representatives Oversight Committee, speaking after that. Was this what we expected from Ghislaine Maxwell's testimony today, Rawia?
It is absolutely what we expected, actually. That's what he said in the clip, that as expected, she took the Fifth Amendment, which is she invoked her right under the Fifth Amendment against self-incrimination. And that's why she refused to answer all the questions that have been put forward to her during this hearing. Now, everything happened as was expected. It happened behind closed doors via video link from prison. She was in prison. She was asked questions, even though, Democratic lawmakers said that they will continue to ask those questions, even though they were expecting that she would not answer them because she would take the Fifth Amendment. But we expect that some of the questions were about co-conspirators, probably more details and names about people who were involved in abusing minors. Also, they said that they planned to ask her about figures, why figures, some of the figures were never indicted, and also Epstein's ties to powerful political and business elites. Now, also, according to the expectations, we were not expecting any prosecutions today. Even Ghislaine Maxwell's lawyers, they said that this was all more political theater, more theatrics rather than anything substantial that should come out of this. And the reason why, exactly, as we heard in the clip, she asked for clemency. In return for cooperation. She was not granted clemency. That's why she refused to answer the questions.
And in some ways, Jono, many people are saying that she pleaded the Fifth. We do know that she's been calling for clemency. She does want this, and she says she'll give all the details under oath if she is granted clemency, and she's given an easier ride in many senses. She's in prison. She's been convicted, but she's still wanting to get out, and this is the leverage that she's using at the moment.
And to be fair, that is the only leverage that she currently has. As an incarcerated woman and as somebody who's in a state penitentiary, she doesn't have a lot of cards to play right now, so she's thinking, this is probably one that I could cling on to. What I do think, and I don't think for a second Ghislaine Maxwell should be out of prison. Do I think she should have a reduced sentence? I think it depends on what she can provide in order, if we can think about it from the point of view of the quantity of people who are in the Epstein files. If we could convict 10 more of them of some of the heinous crimes that have been purported in those documents, then surely clemency, down from the 20 years. I mean, she's not saying what exactly she wants. I don't think she should be free. This woman shouldn't be on the street. But certainly something that we can bargain with to say, right, your evidence could lead to 10, 20, 100 convictions. There has to be some sort of an argument there where you think, okay, maybe this is something we can achieve. But that depends on what she has to offer. Maybe she can coax or slightly give us some information, but I mean, I think it's exactly what we expected from her at this stage. But I don't think the DOJ are going to stop at this. I think they're going to go back again. I think we're going to have more of this. We're going to continue to hear about this because people need to be held accountable. There are hundreds of names that need to be held accountable for these crimes.
I think deals usually happen in such cases that she would cooperate, but she would ask for clemency, she would fully cooperate, probably give names that would lead to convictions. But probably in this case, because it has become such a public case, perhaps it's hard to cut such a deal.
No, I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's almost impossible. And I'm trying to think, how do you work a deal with somebody who we know so much about and the allegations are so severe and so serious? But I guess it would have to be a situation whereby exactly like a reward that the FBI would offer. There's $5 million. However, it's only if they go to court and are convicted of the crime that you can prove, then we'll release the cash. Exactly the same. If they can prove and bring someone to court and they can get a conviction, then yes, you can have a clemency, whatever it may be. But I certainly don't think that out in the street is where Ghislaine Maxwell needs to be.
Another part of her argument, Ghislaine Maxwell's argument, is that she hasn't been able to read or see all the Epstein files. She wants knowledge before she goes in case she incriminates herself in questions, which can happen. And as her lawyer says, she's the woman with all the secrets. She knows it all. We see so many of these files come out. It would be interesting to hear from her. But something that I've always found fascinating, we're speaking about hundreds of people incriminated in these files. We'll get into the details. There's Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. There's Peter Mandelson. The names are endless when it comes to people who have visited Epstein Island or had comms with Jeffrey Epstein, because let's be honest, he was involved in so many big corporations, the elite. He was part of that. But Ghislaine Maxwell is the only person who's gone down, and she's a woman. And sometimes I wonder what that looks like optically to the rest of the world.
From our eyes, I think as women, it doesn't look good in the sense that how come she is the only one exactly that is coming down with this, even though the files are actually pointing to names, specific figures that are extremely powerful with possibly proof of wrongdoing. And nothing is happening, like with Peter Mandelson, like with possibly Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. I agree with you, the optics don't look good, but I suspect that we are going to witness more investigation, possibly more convictions, or at least clearer accountability when it comes to...
For sure, if Jeffrey had been alive, he would also be in prison for these crimes. So I'm guessing the fact that she survived is the reason why she's the one who got the jail sentence. It did feel like she got the jail sentence that would have been going to him as well, but I certainly don't think 20 years even cuts it even remotely close, considering the seriousness and the heinous nature of the crimes. Absolutely not.
And we've obviously heard from the royal family today, which has been quite interesting. We've heard from the Prince and Princess of Wales.
Yep.
They've been speaking out. And it must be so difficult for them because regardless, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor is part of the family. But also, the difficult thing is they're learning about the Jeffrey Epstein files and the allegations in them against Andrew in real time like we are. So they've got to try to keep ahead of the story, the royal family right now.
Well, they've done it in the way that the firm always does. The family are a firm, and the way they've done it is without naming names. They have expressed their deepest condolences to the victims of Jeffrey Epstein. They've deliberately kept the focus on those who were harmed rather than Andrew himself. He is the blot on the copybook for the royal family right now. So they've clearly attempted to do something, which is to distance the working royal family, which William and Kate are both part of, and King Charles and Camilla, away from the scandal. But they've also reinforced accountability. We're hearing this evening that the King has said he's fully willing to cooperate with the police investigation into Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, who is no longer a member of the working royal household in terms of the allegations that are against him. But they don't want to reopen this controversial family issue directly, because that's effectively what this is. And again, it's not just that's the Peter Mandelson story which is in there as well. So what they've done is they've focused solely on the victims and said our hearts are with the victims and their families right now. The strategy is one that the firm do very well. It's containment. They're acknowledging how serious this is, which I think you have to do. And I think the King, having not made a statement about it at this stage, was probably a flaw. But I think there's a chance to rectify that now with the heir to the throne and his wife. They're avoiding this reignition of an internal fallout within the family, but at the same time saying, we understand, we hear it. And I think from a public point of view, they needed to say something. You cannot sit in silence and ignore this completely, which is what, to be fair, the royal family of the United Kingdom have done historically.
Well, never complain, never explain has always been the motto of the royal family. But one thing we didn't get on to, because we've run out of time, but I just want to give a nod to it, is, of course, the UK Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, right now, clearly on the ropes in many respects in his position as leader of the UK and the Labour Party. And that's because he, of course, appointed Peter Mandelson as the US ambassador. It's since come out that he had deep links to Jeffrey Epstein, and there's big questions on why Mandelson wasn't vetted properly. So as we say, you know, the Epstein tentacles keep on going.
They spread.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for your thoughts on that. Let's move on to another story now. And the arguments in a landmark social media trial have started today, where some of the world's biggest companies are being accused of making products intentionally addictive and harmful to young people. Meta co-founder and chief executive Mark Zuckerberg, along with bosses of Instagram and YouTube, are expected to be called as witnesses during the trial. So this is something that we're just kicking off. It's happening today in the US. They're going to trial over social media addiction claims. How did it all start? What was the beginning of this?
Well, it'll be landmark, this case, for sure. We've seen Mark Zuckerberg on the stand before, but when he's been asked and called to give evidence, not in this respect, though. This is different. This is a case that first kicked off with families and a school district specifically that said, we want to file lawsuits against social media platforms. Why? Because we think they're designing these algorithms that are encouraging addictive behavior with our kids. Now, that is a tricky thing to try and prove in a court of law. Over time, the individual lawsuits, there was many of them, were consolidated into one large legal action, which is what we're seeing now being brought to the court. So the plaintiff have argued that what companies have done is prioritise engagement and prioritise profits over child safety, which is very important. And for any parent, that's something you want to have prioritised on a site that your kids are on. So now it's become this big accountability test for big tech that they could really do without, but it's now in court. And there is a concern because there's and it depends on which survey you look at, between 10 and 25% of all teenagers, all adolescents, have shown signs of problematic or addictive social media behavior. This is not somebody who just scrolls on social media and checks videos on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube. This is somebody who, as a result of that social media addiction, have suffered in other ways in their life. They could be suffering from depression. Their studies have started to slip. They have got several different of these, which is classic addiction signs in adults as well, exactly the same thing. Much like you would have an alcoholic, they're showing the signs and symptoms of addiction. And this is where the lawsuit comes from. If it's won, it would be landmark, it would be phenomenal. And I think, you know, hats off to the families who are taking this to court.
It's really interesting because I do think if this case is won and the big tech companies do lose, it might change our life on social media as we know it right now. Because you talk about scrolling, and right now, if we go and scroll on our phones on Instagram or TikTok, Rawia, there's no end to it.
Absolutely.
It just continues and continues and continues. And this is what they're saying. There needs to be some sort of stop-off so people just don't constantly go down that doom scrolling avenue that we see so much. So what could the repercussions for these big tech firms be? And it's interesting speaking to Jono, because we had this conversation before. This is a double-edged sword.
Absolutely.
Because when I think about this, I think about free speech. I think about how much information gets to the world via these social media platforms.
This is the exact point, and that's why the repercussions are going to be far-reaching. And yes, it's going to open a big can of worms. Now, the point is, if the plaintiffs win, and by the way, the first plaintiff is a 19-year-old who's saying that because of the social media and the algorithm and the addiction that they had, it caused them depression, anxiety. So there are plaintiffs with specific conditions who are basically suing or going to court in this case. But in case the plaintiffs win, then the legal immunity of the social media platforms is gone, which means that they are going to be held accountable and they're going to be liable for the content that they put out through their platform, even though it is a third party or the user content. So they're going to be liable. There's going to be a surge in lawsuits against, obviously, social media platforms. That's what happens. Usually people capitalize and they want a piece of the cake. This is going to push all the social media platforms to have more control over the content, and therefore more tightens the control, less freedom of speech. They're probably going to use AI to filter through the content, because operationally it's literally impossible to filter through all of this, the volume of content that's put online and published. And therefore we are looking, yes, at definitely a very different online experience when it comes to social media platforms in the future, because this is not going to stop in the US. If they win this case, these plaintiffs in the US, and they cause a change in the law there, we should expect it to go to Europe, to Australia, to the Middle East, or anywhere else.
And I find it fascinating, right, because you remember that Australia banning under 16-year-olds. That's sort of filtered through to the UK, hasn't it? And we're seeing other countries actually debate that right now. But you're talking about third parties uploading things to social media, and the companies could be liable for that. How on earth are you going to police something like that?
Well, I guess that comes down to the algorithm itself. It does a very good job in picking up when something is not suitable for younger eyes and when it's sensitive content. It does it itself. It's not somebody who sits there and checks that. It's just by automation. AI has developed quite a lot. And I think it'll become a situation whereby you will open your Instagram, you'll be given a warning that says, just FYI, this could be addictive. So you're aware, because there has to be a start somewhere. This lawsuit may not be won. And if it's not one, there'll be more lawsuits afterwards that may be one. Somebody has to be the first. And if you look back at tobacco companies being sued in the US, and in 1998, when 42 states took the tobacco companies, big pharma, so to speak, in terms of tobacco, to court, and initially they were faced with so much backlash, they ended up getting, I think it was Camel Joe, he was the mascot at the time, he got banned, and they ordered to pay $250 million over the course of 25 years towards healthcare. Somebody had to be the first, and somebody has to say, right, there's a reason for this. If it is addictive, that may be one thing, and it comes with those ramifications. Why are parents not taking some of the onus at least on thinking?
I think that's very, very important, because yes, I mean, you can put regulations. The social media platforms can really censor the content, yet without parents' supervision at home. And even with that, still parents cannot actually monitor 100% what their kids are
and
seeing.
I don't think they can, no.
But the problem is not just to do with kids and addiction. I mean, we're talking about adults who are on a scrolling spree every night before going to bed, obviously affecting their sleep.
I'm completely guilty of it, you know.
All of us. Yeah. All of us are. But the thing is, I mean, they can do other things to limit that kind of addiction, like put a timing on scrolling.
It
defeats their purpose. But maybe it can be let's say, halfway solution.
Well, I mean, there has to be something. But they've said they've put safeguards in place. Meta have got these safeguards in place to stop this down. If you, as a parent, would like to put something on your phone, on your child's phone, which limits the amount of screen time they can get, That is an option. That is a separate app. That's a third-party app that you can install on there again. Meta are simply providing the platform. And what they're saying is that how you use that platform is entirely up to you. Is that a correct argument? I'm not entirely sure. I'm seeing it from an adult's perspective. I want to scroll for as long as I want. I don't want to be judged on that. If it's addictive behavior, I can understand how that's a concern. But for kids with their tiny minds, like a sponge taking everything in, I can't decipher what's real and what's fake on social media. How is a 6 or 13-year-old supposed to do that? I just find that baffling.
And as we were saying, for young kids, it does actually rewire their brain. But then again, as an adult myself, I think of social media, and I think that it gave us the opportunity to know what's happening elsewhere in the world where mainstream media doesn't reach or is not interested in telling us, you know? But it is a double-edged sword, censoring and having such control over content on social media platforms is a double-edged sword, that's
and
for sure.
I would agree with you completely. I do think social media has a place in society where it's given people access to news, people who wouldn't often be interested. Coming from my job as a journalist, people will be exposed to a lot more of what's happening around the world, geopolitically, in various different countries. So I think there is definitely a place for it, but it'll be so interesting to see how this trial plays out and see if Meta, all the other big tech companies will come up with solutions to stop, like you say, the addictive algorithms that people just use and are rewiring children's brains. It's going to be a fascinating time. Hot topic, I feel like, when it comes to the internet and social media. But thank you so much for your thoughts there. Let's move on to another story now. And in Japan, messages of congratulations from around the world have been pouring in for Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi and a governing coalition following a big win in the country's general elections. The landslide victory paves the way for her proactive fiscal policy and overhaul of Japan's defense capabilities amid countering China's military assertiveness. Chris Gilbert has this report.
It was a stunning result for Japan's governing coalition, riding on the back of Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi's sky-high popularity ratings. The win caps a remarkable turnaround for Takaichi's Liberal Democratic Party, following consecutive drubbings in national elections over the past 2 years. US President Donald Trump took to the platform X to congratulate Japan's leader, wishing her a success in passing her conservative, peace-through-strength agenda. US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent also hailed the win.
And boy, has she had a big victory today. She's going to have 2/3 majority in the upper house. President Trump endorsed her last week. She is a great ally, great relationship with the president. And when Japan is strong, the U.S. is strong in Asia.
Japanese stocks rose at the start of the week following Takaichi's win. Her proactive fiscal policy, emphasizing large-scale strategic investment, lifted investors' moods. The margin of victory gives the governing coalition a strong mandate to push through its policies.
The opposition parties have lost a large number of seats, so in that sense, it may make it easier for things to move forward. But at the same time, if an atmosphere emerges in which people feel they can't voice opposing opinions, then I think carelessness and arrogance will start to crop up. I sincerely hope the administration avoids this kind of situation.
Takaichi also plans to accelerate defense spending and expand Japan's missile and drone programs. She's taking a tough line against China as well as North Korea in what she sees as the threat they pose to stability in the Asia-Pacific. Observers are watching closely to see whether Japan's leader revises the country's pacifist constitution that's been in place since the end of World War II. Doing so will likely raise tensions with Beijing, and how Takaichi manages her relationship with China may define her foreign policy and Japan's defense posture for years to come. Chris Gilbert, Arabiya English.
So, Rawia, we just heard there from Chris Gilbert. He was speaking to us. But what's the latest from Japan's snap election that happened over the weekend?
Yes, well, As you heard, the Prime Minister, Sanai Takaichi, managed to score a landslide victory in these elections. She gave her party, the Liberal Democratic Party, a supermajority in the lower house. They actually managed to win 316 votes out of 465, which is way more than the minimum, which was 233 seats that they needed to secure the majority, which means that Takaichi now holds a very strong control over the parliament. This means that she will be able to push her agenda, to push some of the legislation she's been talking about on budgets, on defense spending as well, economic policy, which is very, very important. She spoke about, or she promised that she would suspend the 8% food sales tax, which is supposed to help households, yet it spooked the markets a little bit. But in general, overall, the reactions were quite positive, whether it be from the markets to her win. Even internationally, we know that President Donald Trump had endorsed her. We know that they have a good relationship. It'll be really interesting to see how she is going to carry out her fiscal policies and her promises to increase the military and defense budget, which is the reason why there was, this endorsement and this close relationship with President Trump.
Absolutely fascinating what she's managed to achieve, Sanai Takaichi, because her party was not doing very well just 4 months ago. She took over. She's had this election. It was a gamble. It's massively paid off.
The turnout was absolutely amazing. It's very, very high.
Yeah, absolutely. And for extraordinary cold temperatures like it is in Japan right now. But I think a lot of the question happening now is Takaichi. She's had this landslide win in Japan. But what does this mean for Japanese and Chinese relations? Because they haven't been on the best footing since she did assume power.
No, and we knew going into these elections, the priorities for the voters, specifically the younger voters, they wanted economic stability and they wanted an increase in defence spending and certainly in defence tactics that were going to be ramped up. So we knew that that was a priority. Whereas your older voter population, they were more keen on stability in the long term, because we know pensions have been suffering in Japan as well. She's been called Japan's Maggie Thatcher, and she's come in with this very strong mandate, which is an assertive stance towards China, which is exactly what the young voters kind of requested before she went in with this mandate. So it looks like it's paid off dividends for her, particularly on things like territorial waters and the defence policy, as Rawia mentioned as well. A higher spending on that is good news, and clearly it's won her the favour of the voters as well. So she's got to reassure the parts of the Japanese electorate and the financial markets as well that there will be no... She has to make sure that they are safe against China, but they can't risk a diplomatic friction with Beijing at all, which is a very, very tricky tightrope to try to walk. But it seems like she may be the one to do it. And she certainly offered the best solution for the younger voters, which, as Rawia said, showed out in their droves. Traditionally, Japan has got one of the lowest voter turnouts globally, normally around 40%. We saw 56% of people almost show up for this, of eligible voters show up for this, which is way up on the 53% that showed up in the 2024 election. So I think she's done something different. She's been visible to the public. I mean, come on, how many times do people talk about Japanese politics in real life? Whereas this lady has done it. She's managed to get into the public psyche, and she's done a really good job on that. And I think that's why we've seen young voters come out who had prioritised economic, because we know the cost of living crisis is affecting Japan as well, economic issues, and secondarily defence issues. Now let's see her put her money where her mouth is and see if she can do that.
I find it fascinating because Shinzo Abe was really the one Japanese Prime Minister that many people knew around the world. Sanai Takaichi sees herself as his successor. He was assassinated. But like you do say, she just has appealed to so many people, and so many people turned out for the elections. And the question is because she was big on social media. We've just been talking about it. We saw her playing the drums. She was in a heavy metal band. And she rode a motorbike.
This is the double-edged sword that we're talking about then.
But I think about Donald Trump, and he won the younger voter through social media too. So it's actually becoming a trend if you look worldwide when it comes to politics.
Yes, absolutely.
Ma'am Danny?
It is the way to reach young voters nowadays, definitely, because I mean they don't watch TV anymore. They don't watch the news. Not necessarily. There will be, you know, at rallies, but it's social media is guaranteed. You're going to get to these every single. At least young person out there, as you were talking about your nephew, who became interested in politics because of social media, and therefore these young voters are going to formulate their opinion and participate.
And it's clearly working.
It's working so far. Let's just hope that she keeps true to her word and her mandate rings through, because that's what people wanted.
Well, you know.
Wait and see.
Wait and see. Now, stay right there as we move on to another story. And the Seattle Seahawks beat the New England Patriots to win this year's Super Bowl. Jason Myers kicked 5 field goals for the Seahawks, which was a Super Bowl score. And Puerto Rican superstar Bad Bunny gave a historic halftime show by performing the entire set in Spanish. President Trump described it as one of the worst ever. Okay. Donald Trump wasn't keen. First of all, said wasn't going to watch it, was going to watch the Turning Points USA Super Bowl All-American Kid Rock.
Kid Rock, yeah.
Well, seemed to not watch that. Tweet about Bad Bunny, or Truth Social about the Bad Bunny, or X about the Bad Bunny, whatever you want to call it. But Jono, what do you make of Bad Bunny's Super Bowl performance?
So it's weird because not many people are mentioning the actual football that was on yesterday. That's the first time I've heard somebody say what team won, because nobody's talking about that.
We don't care about that.
I don't think I'd heard my mum ever mention an artist on this level before, but she's talking about Bad Bunny today. My mum.
Wow.
Never exposed to him before. And what he's done is, it's different. It's unique. Look, we're at the 60th Super Bowl. That's what this was. And we've never seen this before. He performed it all in Spanish. It was 13 minutes long. And I got to be honest with you, I think he's done something very special here. And I want to take away any of the political protest part which is going on here, because there's a lot of that built into it. But what we saw was a spectacle. It was a live show. I love live entertainment. And I think that this was probably one of the best pieces of live entertainment I've seen. Hats off to the director of this particular performance. It is very impressive. Didn't understand not even a syllable. I think I got some of the countries he mentioned at the end. Aside from that,
you're
nothing.
not the only one.
Good. So I felt lonely, but I did feel moved, and I thought that is a really good performance. He had Lady Gaga, he had Pedro Pascal, he had a Kardashian, Ricky Martin performed. He had all these people who were just popping up. Cardi B was in there. All these people just randomly popping up in the middle of and doing cameos in this. As a performance in terms of Super Bowl halftime shows, this slapped, and this is going to go down as one of the best Super Bowl halftime shows of all time.
I must admit, I watched it. I preferred J-Lo and Shakira. Let's put it politically that way. I'm a bit like Donald Trump.
Because of the political message, or
yeah, it kind of irritated
value?
me. The political message irritated me. And I do get that America's very divided at the moment, and I do think it's always good to have a political message and to make sure unity is important, which I truly believe in. But I also sometimes wonder, is this what America needed right now, because it's so divisive, the country? I just wish that Donald Trump would lay low for a little bit and, you know, possibly all of it just sort of calm down a little bit. I don't know, Rawia.
I suppose it depends how you look at it. I mean, is this a reaction, or is this an action that is prompting a reaction?
I know,
right?
and that's
I mean,
a difficult...
It depends on your perspective.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing to say. I do agree with that. But I must admit, I watched it, didn't understand a word with Donald Trump on that. But good for Bad Bunny. He's had a glow up. He's looking slick.
Yeah, I think he's trying to do something, even with the kid, which you just saw in the clip there, who he gave his Grammy to. Now, that kid is just maybe supposed to be a younger version of himself. There's a lot of speculation that it looked a lot like Liam Ramos, who was the 5-year-old who'd been captured detained by ICE in the last couple of weeks.
Another political message.
Again, we didn't need these political messages. If you take all that away from it and the massive billboard on behind him, it's worked. It's everywhere now. We didn't need that, but if you look at it as a performance, I think it was really good as a performance. I haven't a clue what was going on, but it's really visually spectacular.
Actually, you said something before we were on, that even these sugar canes are actually people.
We'll
get to about that. We're going to get to that next. But Rawia, what did you make of the performance? Was it a protest? Did you enjoy it? Do you like seeing those big halftime spectacles?
I really enjoyed it from an artistic point of view and also from a political message, in the sense that I think art is supposed to put a message out there. Okay, it is entertainment, but it should talk to, it should talk about issues that touch us, touch our life. Love is not the only thing that touches us and drives our lives. There are other things as well. And, sometimes a political message is not that bad. Having said that, when it comes to Donald Trump, I agree with you. He agrees with you that he did not understand anything. I wasn't surprised at all, actually, by his reaction. He said, nobody understands a word this guy says, and he went on saying how the dancing is disgusting. And anyways, that was not surprising at all, to be honest, for me. But at the same time, I mean, in a way, it's a bit distasteful because he's talking about a language, Spanish, that is spoken by 13% of Americans, 50 million Americans at least, watch this, speaking Spanish. Also Spanish speakers around the world. So it came off as if Trump is saying that speaking Spanish in such a public event is kind of not very American.
He could have done one song in English. I mean, Lady Gaga
could have done one song in English, absolutely. I agree with that. And then he rolled out Gaga. She's not my favourite, but anyway, moving on from that. I just think that one thing that's absolutely fascinating, Donald Trump obviously took to Truth Social about this, and this has actually done Bad Bunny some good because he's had so much news about it because Donald Trump made this tweet.
Well, he started a week ago in the Grammys.
Yeah, so in some weird way, like Donald Trump's making Bad Bunny famous because I've even heard of him. So that's kind of crazy. Which, with your mum.
He's the most streamed artist, or one of the most globally.
Yeah,
apparently.
His song is the biggest in the world.
I didn't know about him, to be honest, before the Grammys.
No, I didn't know about him either. Quick one, a wedding happened live at the Super Bowl. It was completely loved. Actually, I really loved that part of the performance.
Is it legit? Is the wedding real?
Apparently it's legit, and it was two of his really good friends, and I think that's such a lovely touch.
Oh.
I mean, that's an expensive wedding, isn't it?
Well,
good audience, though.
Yeah, look how lovely it is. It's absolutely beautiful. And we're going to move on now, and it's that time of the show where Jono and Rawia have chosen two of their quirkiest stories of the day. And let's move on from the Super Bowl to something that you spotted at the Super Bowl, how much you loved that performance. What did you spot?
So it's from the Super Bowl to the Super Bowl, but there was a lot of grass, and you might have noticed...
You watch sport, Jono.
I don't. I watched it for the halftime performance. Because we saw all of the grass come onto the pitch and everything, we saw the stage and everything. Can you just spare a moment and think, that was people in the sugarcane. They are people dressed up as sugarcane. Because it had to move at such a rapid speed. The way to do that is, the quickest way to do it, is to dress hundreds of people up as sugarcane and get them onto the pitch at the same time. These people were paid good dollar money for this, $17 an hour, and they were working on this for 9 days beforehand to get ready for the Super Bowl. But all of these people lined up onto the field, and I'm like, wow, new career goal unlocked. You could have been the sugarcane at the Super Bowl halftime show. Imagine telling everyone, yeah, I'm in Bad Bunny's Super Bowl halftime show for Super Bowl 60. What are you? I'm the sugarcane.
I'm the sugarcane.
I honestly thought they were props, and the closer you look, I can't tell the difference. It just looked like props that were wheeled on. They're people.
It was fascinating.
It was quite a spectacle.
And when you talk about the performance and the director and the theatrics, it's incredible when you look at it from that sort of point of view. As long as I saw someone harvesting the sugarcane, as long as no one was harmed during that performance.
So, yeah. I think that was a staged piece.
It was a stage piece.
Well, some really good videos on social of them running around the pitch.
But I do think it's lovely, that's a really good part of it, is once again, so many people have to come together to put on a show like this. Sometimes we underestimate the volume of people behind it all, but absolutely fascinating. Rawia, and yours is a quirky story about an island that is worth 30 million US dollars.
But who owns it?
Shakira.
Exactly. She owns it. Well, she used to own it. Now she still is, but she enlisted it. She wants to sell it for 30 million US dollars, even though she bought it for half that amount for, I think, $16 million in 2006. So she's had it for 20 years.
Wow.
And she wants to sell it. It's a beautiful island, actually. Look at the pictures, it's gorgeous. And it's called Bonds Cay, and it is described as being 650 acres slice of paradise. Wow. I think I agree from the pictures. And it is located in the northern Bahamas, around 125 miles away from Miami, Florida. So, if you're interested, Leanne, you can put in an offer.
I must say something. I am just one of Shakira's biggest fans. I do love Shakira.
I love her too, yes.
I do look at that island and I think, Shakira, I would be bored if I lived all the way out there on my own. I think living on an island might be a little bit isolating for me. So I'm not going to put my $30 million up.
And I think, but I didn't
Could be
realize
just a holiday island.
Yeah,
maybe,
that's true.
Invite your friends, go have some.
That's true.
it's expensive for what it is. But I will say that I think she's, by the way, worth like $500 million, which I find crazy because she's got so many eggs in different baskets. So she's done really well. I just think right now, if someone has got a couple of million around to spare and they're at the level of super mega wealthy, I think the last thing you want to be investing money in is a private island at the moment.
We'll link it
I'd
back
be
to
steering
a first story that we did today, but we won't mention
It's
names.
not a good idea.
Not a good idea.
I must say something. We're talking about Spanish, and she just brought out an album in Spanish, Shakira. It was absolutely brilliant. I really enjoyed that album.
She's so good and
She
evergreen
could do the Super Bowl
well.
halftime again.
I would love her to do the Super Bowl halftime again. I'm actually sad Bad Bunny didn't bring her on.
Would have been perfect.
Would have
Better than
been
Ricky
perfect,
Martin.
Yes, I agree.
Anyway, no one cares what I think. But thank you so much to the guests today, Rawia Alami, senior presenter at Al Arabiya, and of course, the broadcaster Jono Hayes. And that's all from us on W News Extra. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on X, G&T will be coming up next. Goodbye and thank you.